Okay.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and all of you potential Toastmasters out there. Welcome to Wake Up with Toastmasters. I am your club growth director for District 115. My name is Ken Richardson, and with me today is my co-host, the lovely Phyllis Trivy, distinguished Toastmaster and past district governor. Good morning, Phyllis. How are you doing?
Good morning, Ken, and hello to our public out there. I am fantastic. How are you today? Are we live on Facebook?
We are live. Everything seems to be just perfectly in order here, so all is well. If anybody joins us, then we'd be glad to have them and answer their questions live. Today, we're going to talk about the club treasurer. That's a role that I haven't played as much. I've done it a couple of times. You know, I know I've served in every role at least one time, and some many times, like VPE, treasurer, not treasurer, VPE, secretary. Those seem to be the roles that I get put in my club as we cycle through all the officers. But I have done treasurer, but only a couple of times, and I know you've done it a couple of times as well. What's your perception of this role?
Well, I have to say that I think it's the easiest one, but of course I'm a bookkeeper, so what else would I think? I have been a treasurer, I think, since the beginning of my Toastmaster career. When I first started, secretary and treasurer were kind of combined. Now we try to separate them so that everyone in the club gets a chance to be an officer, because it's part of the learning experience. There's no qualifications. If you're a member, you can handle the role and learn from it.
I think that's, do you find, I suppose, that because you are a bookkeeper, that people say, oh, Phyllis, you'd be a great treasurer. So, so you kind of get stuck in that?
I think so, but the thing of it is, I am always the treasurer. It's one of the reoccurring roles, the treasurer's role. In Toastmasters, we are supposed to change our officers every 6 months if we're a weekly club, or every year if we meet twice a month or less. But with the treasurer, most people or most clubs, I believe, keep their treasurer because you have to do all the setup work, the signature cards, changing over of the bank account. With my bank account, to get a free account for my club, it is connected to my personal information. So I cannot just go out and give this to someone else because it has all my personal information. So if we were going to change, then I would have to get like a certified check and give it to the next treasurer. Then that treasurer would have to go in and apply for an account separately and have all the information that we are a nonprofit organization, have a copy of our 501c. And, you know, it just takes a while. And for me, I don't feel like a checking account should be that high that you're worried about the money being taken. Most people run $200 to $300. I don't think we ever go any higher than that. If we do, we just do not have any club dues for 6 months or a year.
That's exactly the way we've done it in my home club, because you know we haven't started meeting in person again, so we haven't had to purchase any supplies like ribbons or whatever it might be that we used to purchase. We used to get member pins and all of that, but it's really hard to pin somebody.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know, the bill I think is 78 cents for a letter. That seems kind of drastic to send something out.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know when we'll resume that, but for the time being, what we've done is only collected, you know, the TI dues, the international dues. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, I do have a PowerPoint we'll get to just so that we can make sure we kind of get all of the ones. This is
Cover everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Of course.
But before we get to that, I wanted to ask you, the coming soon, I've been told from TI, they're upgrading their computer system, so that any member can go in and pay directly their international dues online. So have you heard this as well, or?
You have read it. You've talked about it some. Yes, and I think that's a great idea. Currently, any officer can pay their own dues, but I think it would be great because I have so many people that would love to use a credit card, and I can take credit cards and put them in myself, but it's not something that I like to do. I'd rather have a check and put it in the checking account and pay the dues from our account. So yeah, I think it'll be great. And I think that I'm going to say at least 100% of our membership will like that. I guess over the years, I've just have heard so much about why can't I use my credit card, or why can't I go in and pay it? And I think it'll be great for everyone.
Well, it's coming soon. It's part of the, I think they said, I was at a meeting, they were talking about some of the changes coming down the pike in the computer system, and that was one of them. TI is spending about $1.3 million to upgrade their system. They're going to, in addition to allowing all members to pay online, they will, except for club dues, of course, will still have to deal with that. That's not likely to change, but at least it'll make it somewhat easier, I think. But they're also working on improvements in Basecamp, and that there will also be, as you and I have discussed, training for judges will be through Basecamp in the not too distant future. So I think it sounds like some good stuff, but the execution of it, we'll have to see. I know the website here over the past several weeks has counted, the TI website has been somewhat challenging because parts of it have been down, haven't been updated, and that makes it a little more challenging. Well, let me pull up, if I can, let me see if I can get this, just so we make sure we cover our bases here. Where is it? Of course, I can't find it. And I just had this up, so maybe that'll fix it. It's so funny because I go into this and I get everything ready, and then all of a sudden it doesn't show up on my list, and I don't quite know why.
Well, I can continue to talk about.
Well, you go ahead while I try and figure out what the heck happened here, because I had this ready and I don't know why it's not working, but you go ahead and talk about it while I see if I can fix it.
Well, yeah, the main job of the treasurer is to take care of the money that's collected from the club and pay their bills on time. Now, they're collecting dues to be paid to Toastmasters International on April the 1st and October the 1st. So when do we start trying to collect that dues? Not on March the 31st and September 30th. No, we start out at the beginning of the month. And I like to say that the dues are due on March the 31st. Don't give them that extra. Make sure that it is a current month and start collecting dues. I believe that everybody should be on free toast, yes. And there is a treasurer's report. It is great to send out reminders about your dues. You can make that little email exactly what you want it to say. Then there is a list of all the people that are in the club, and you can check to see which one of them you want to get that email. So everybody should be using it because it's very, very simple. So let's see what you have on your PowerPoint.
Well, I tell you, I had too many windows open. I guess it wasn't recognizing, so I had to go through and close a bunch of the windows I had open. But here it is. I found this little graphic that I thought looked really great to just sort of sprinkle our title page here. So the club treasurer, much of this we've already talked about, but I thought it'd be good just to go over it.
Okay.
So who the treasurer is. The treasurer, of course, is the club's financial officer. He or she handles the money. Show me the money, as they say. But I think that's how we all see it, and that's appropriate because that's what we want the treasurer to do, is to be the sort of chief financial officer for our club. Even though the amounts are small, as you and I have talked about, it's important that they be managed correctly because financial impropriety would not look good for the organization as a whole. So what do? They collect membership dues, they report on club finances. We've talked already a little bit about paying the dues at the national level, but it's also reporting back to the club, typically at an executive committee meeting, or it may be part of a business meeting at the regular club meeting to report on the finances. How much do we have? And that's how we really decided in my club that we had money sitting there because we hadn't met in person, we hadn't purchased ribbons or pins and the kind of things that we do to give to our new members. So we just started waiving our club dues and only worrying about our national. So we do get regular reports. And I think that's important that the club members appreciate how much money does the club have and what is it being spent on. Let's see a few other things. Prepare a budget. And this ties into, in my mind, the club success plan. And the reason for that is if you're going to hold an open house or you're going to do any kind of promotional activity, maybe you're going to do a speech craft, there likely will be some expenditures. So it's very helpful, I think, to say, well, okay, how much money are we going to have to do X, Y, Z? How much are we going to spend on an open house or on a speech craft or a promotional event? And do we have the money to do that? And if you don't, if you don't prepare a roadmap, you won't know where you're going. And that really is what a budget is preparing a roadmap. And again, as you and I have talked about, Phyllis, it's not huge amounts of money. Most clubs don't have huge amounts of money to spend. And this is why it's important to budget that money and to think about what are we going to do, for example, to recruit new members? And if we do X, Y, Z, what will it cost? What other types of budgetary items can you think of that we need to make sure we consider? We talked about supplies and events.
Well, now that we're doing hybrid, which I believe will be our future in Toastmasters is hybrid, we need to have the equipment so that everything works really well. Yes, members bring in their own equipment, their computers. The other day, we had to do one with just phones. But one of the things that we found that one of our members brings in to the club is a great microphone, a microphone that could be sit in the middle of the room and picked up everybody that was around talking. And I think that's one of the things that we need to budget for. Can we afford one of those? How large does our club have to get before we need one of those? So there are some things I think that will come out of the hybrid meetings that'll have to be budgeted.
Well, I'm glad you talked about that because that brings to mind, some of the support for hybrid meetings, like a Zoom account. I know that the district and TI have been providing some discounts for
Mhm.
Zoom, and the same support. We're getting some support for clubs that have Meetup. But these are the kinds of things that may be required going forward for the club to take on. So that would become part of what their budget looks like. So you might have supplies and equipment, you might have your social media outreach, whether that's Meetup and Zoom, or of course Facebook doesn't cost anything, but any other types of media outreach could be, require a certain amount of expenditure. So you want to think about that going forward. The other thing we talked about is getting a signatory card. And that's what you, as you correctly pointed out, that's one of the sort of barriers to switching over treasurers. And I know it's actually in the bylaws about you can't run for president. You're not supposed to run for president more than 2 years in a row. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, one renewal time is
One renewal, yeah.
yeah.
But I don't think, as I recall, that it says that for the treasurer.
I kind of thought that was for all officers, but it's been a long time since I've looked at the rules.
I know, and I should have looked at that to be sure, and I will follow up. But I didn't recall it for the treasurer, because I know in my club, our treasurer has done a great job, and she's been treasurer for several years. So we're very grateful to her. But if you do change, you need to understand the banking rules. And you can download the 501c3 letter from the TI website. We'll also need a copy of the minutes where the new treasurer is elected, that kind of thing. And then you can go in and get that card and get your account set up if you haven't done it. And of course, collecting and paying dues. As you mentioned, we've got twice a year that we collect dues. And another thing I've heard rumors of, because to me, I would just assume pay for a full year. And, just do it one time, once a year, not have to do it over and over. And I think that's coming down the pike. And I know this has created some issues. There are some corporate clubs that, it's their practice. They pay this annually, and that has created some problems. So maybe the new system will be able to accommodate a certain amount of variation. Won't be nearly as strict as it has been in the past. The other thing that happens, and our treasurer does this, is new member applications, because she collects the money. She does the initial entry of new members. Now I'm the one who puts them in like Free Toast Host, because I'm one of the administrators on our Free Toast Host account. But she's the one who submits everything to TI and collects the money. And she also orders supplies when we were meeting in person. And a lot of clubs, that may be the secretary's role or perhaps the sergeant at arms. But the way we've handled it in my club is to have people tell the treasurer, I need XYZ. The club is running low on ribbons. Can you please order some of these ribbons or what have you? Simply because she's got everything set up to pay for it. Just makes it easier. Is that typically, now you've been the treasurer, is that typically what you do as well, Phyllis?
Absolutely. I've always ordered the supplies, and I've always submitted the new members. The person with the cash card is the person that does the work.
Yes, and fortunately, it is relatively uncomplicated and easy to do. But but it is very important that it be done correctly. You get credit for getting your new members signed up on time and all of that, and that you pay whatever bills are owed and keep good financial records. Of course, the treasurer is one of the officers who sits on the executive committee. So they're going to need to present reports to the executive committee. A lot of clubs I know do not routinely get an audit, but that's probably something that should happen once a year. What is your recommendation on that, Phyllis?
I don't think so. I mean, as say, there is such a small amount And if the reports are given like mine is every week, and they have to vote for any money that's spent, then they know what's coming out of the account. And the next week, the report would reflect that. And I would like to say that these reports that you're given are written, and they can be attached again to Free Toast Hosts. Everything can be attached there. So, put it where it belongs. If somebody needs to come and look at it, there's a record is always there.
I think that's really good advice, Phyllis, is to make sure that those records are reviewed on a regular basis by the executive committee and distributed to the entire club and reviewed. There's a note of that in the minutes so that you confirm what you've said, and also to post those reports on Free Toast Host. I think that's a really excellent idea. Of course, the treasurer is going to be a part of the executive committee and the routine stuff in terms of reconciliation of expenditures and what have you. But you are right, the amounts are so small, getting an audit, at least a formal audit, would be really, really challenging. So I think there's enough oversight that if something were going awry, you would pick up on it, hopefully very soon. Make sure, the treasurer wants to make sure that that the club meets all government tax regulations. And again, we talked about the audit and any financial correspondence. Now, as part of the executive committee, we also talked about preparing the budget, presenting reports. One thing I do want to emphasize again is building that club success plan. And we've talked about this before, and we'll probably have a special show on just the club success plan and how it ties to the Distinguished Club program. Because I think this is a tool that we don't emphasize enough for our clubs. But when your executive committee works on a club success plan, it will include things like a budget. You're going to map out a strategy that says, okay, in September, we're going to have an open house. We're going to do a speech craft in next January. Here's what the year looks like. And this is how we're going to use these events and spend whatever money we have, however small it may be, to ensure the success of our club. And the tool we're going to use to monitor it will not be only the goals and objectives we set in the plan, but it will be the Distinguished Club program that helps us to monitor our success. So those two documents, the Club Success Plan and the Distinguished Club program, are tied together, most importantly, and together, I believe those are just critical tools to ensure the success of the club. What are your thoughts on that?
I think a budget is pretty easy to work on, really. If you would decide, open house, okay, we have 4 of those a year. You're allowed to spend up to $50 for food for that event. So now you've got $200 in your budget. We have X amount of badges. We buy a badge for our newbies once they give their first level. So, how many badges, how many newbies? Can you estimate what that's going to be? And when you get done, say you've got $300 to budget for the year and X number of members, and that kind of tells you what the dues has to be per member, divided up by 12 months or 6 months, whatever you're working toward. And you know whether or not your $2 a month budget is going to cover your budget items.
Exactly, and I think it's again, a tool that we don't utilize enough is that Club Success Plan, including preparing a budget to make sure that your strategy is mapped out for the current year. And the other thing that I would encourage our clubs to think about as they do that is, this the club success plan is not a static document. You don't just do it and put it on the shelf and forget about it. You need to bring it out once in a while, preferably monthly, and say, where are we? Let's look at our Distinguished Club program. Are we meeting our objectives? If not, what is the problem? Was it the wrong objective? That's one of the possible reasons that you might not be meeting those objectives, is you didn't set it up correctly in the first place, and it was off target. So we need to adjust that. We need to change and make sure that we are setting realistically obtainable goals, and that we are doing everything within the club to make sure that we reach those goals. So that's what I think we'll have down the road. When we finish our series on officers, I think next Tuesday will be Sergeant at Arms, then we'll talk about the club success plan and the Distinguished Club program.
Well,
What do you think?
Yeah, part of the treasurer's duties is to be sure that dues is paid on time. And there is a half of a point for the dues that are paid on time. The other half of that point is that the officer lists are in on time. So to be a treasurer, to get your money in on time, means 8 members renew at that particular time. So if you have 20 members in your club and you get money from 8, file it, put it in, then it gets registered and you've earned your half point. You don't have to worry about it. You want to keep collecting money and paying it, but you don't wait until the end. Once you get those 8, send it in, get that point.
Absolutely. Well, we're about out of time here. Anything that you'd like to wrap up with about the treasurer's role?
No, other than, as I say, the reports can go on your free host toast, and it's so easy to do. Even your bank statements can be held there. So use it. It's a tool we've been given.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Phyllis. As always, it's good to go. I think it's great to review the club officer's role. And I want to encourage all members to consider leadership roles. Take a leadership role within your club, and then look at leadership roles beyond the club. Area director, division director, even club growth director at some point. It might be in your future. I didn't really plan back when I started to move into leadership. I was looking at public speaking, but certainly it's a part of all that we do, and the two absolutely go hand in hand. Want to remind everyone that we do have divisions A and B international and evaluation contests this weekend, Saturday, April 23rd. We will be at Palo Verde High School. Doors open at 8 a.m. The contest starts at 9 a.m. I think it's going to be like $5 to get in. We just enough to cover whatever expenses. For example, there we have to pay for the venue and what have you, and some food, have some snacks. It's going to be a great event. Then on April 30th will be the divisions C and D international and evaluation contests. And that all culminates, of course, at the district contest. That'll be May 14th. That is going to be held live and in person. First time since we've been a district, 115. That's going to be very, very exciting. We'll be at the Hampton Inn over on Dean Martin in Tropicana. It's just off the 15th. If you need the link for to register for the May 14th, it's in the newsletter, or you can send me an email. I'll be happy to send that back out to you. You want to get that in because we're going to have to limit attendance because of the size of the venue. I think our maximum capacity there is going to be 100. So get your registration in as soon as you can, and we will see you there. Anything else before we wrap up here, Phyllis? I see that, let's see, Jennifer's joined us a little bit. Good morning, Jennifer. Thank you for tuning in. Anything else?
I think you've covered it.
Excellent. All right.
Way to go.
More announcements to come. So we will see you soon. Oh, I do want to let everyone know, because the May 14th convention is on the second Saturday, we will not have educational enrichment night
Oh,
in May. We'll just have to skip over that month and we'll pick back up in June. Have a great day, everyone. Signing off here on Wake Up with Toastmasters. We appreciate your watching and we will see you again.
See you
Bye-bye.
on Tuesday.
Bye-bye.